What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Real Estate Moguls. My name is Findlay-Shirras, and on today's show, we have the president of Luxury Portfolio International, otherwise known as LPI, a luxury marketing division of leading real estate companies of the world, home of the world's market-leading independent residential brokerages in over 70 countries.
Well done.
This organization is really special, bringing together independent brokerages and agents, helping them compete against the big franchises. And this woman is the head of the luxury division with superpowers in marketing and communications. So I'm excited to learn about luxury, to talk about independence and the future of real estate from her eyes. So get your luxury pen out and let's get started and get to know Miss Stephanie Anton. Thanks so much for being on the show, Stephanie.
That was a great intro.
Yeah, you liked it?
Yeah, well done.
Well, I'm excited to hear your story. So why don't you kind of give people an overview of your path through real estate and how you are now the president of Luxury Presence.
So about me personally?
Yeah, let's go.
So I have been in real estate marketing since 2002. I went to graduate school and studied integrated marketing, and after that I went to work for a franchise, and I've been in real estate marketing ever since. But before that, to be perfectly honest, my father was a real estate developer.
Okay.
And my husband is a real estate developer. So I've never sold real estate. I'm a marketer, strict marketer, but it's in my blood.
Cool.
Yeah. So I went to work for a franchise, and then I ran marketing for a brokerage, and then I've been with Luxury Portfolio since we launched the program, really.
And how come you wanted to work for them? What got you into it?
The specific company I'm at now? Yeah. To be honest with you, I love Leading RE is a wonderful company because it's a collection of independent brokerages. And so what that means simply is that they are the broker owners, and they're people that have their name on the door. And so they are people who make their own decisions, they're entrepreneurs, they generally are really big risk takers, and they make their own decisions, and they're willing to try new things. And so it's a fun group to work with because they're just very adventurous, and they've got a stake in it, a real personal stake in it.
What do you say to the agent? Like, what have you found are the benefits of being independent? When you look at these brokerages and you're seeing they're taking on more risk, but this is the reward, whether it be monetary or lifestyle, for being an independent brokerage. Sure. What are some of the benefits?
I think the big thing is that they don't have to pay a franchise fee, and so they're able to do more with their dollars because they've built their own brands, and so they don't need franchises are wonderful, and what you get for that fee is a well-known brand. But to be a very successful independent brokerage, you don't need to have a brand. You need to have a name in your local market. You don't have to have a name, outside of your market. So. I think that it's a real opportunity to use your money really wisely, to be very creative, and to do something different. So there's an easy way to differentiate when you build your own brand, because you can know your local market really, really well, and you can build something that local people really want and will resonate with them.
Well, so then what do you say to the agent, team leader, broker that goes, yeah, but there's so much liability of being on your own, and there's all these other headaches and stresses. Is that in their head, or is that a real thing?
Of course, it's a real thing, but I think that's what that's the risk that comes with owning your own business. And so if you don't have the stomach for that, maybe a franchise is a better bet for you. But if you're a real true, entrepreneur to your blood and want to have, build a brand from the ground up, I think there's a lot of opportunity with an independent brand. A lot of our companies too, by the way, are long-time companies. So we see second and third generation families that are running companies that their parents or grandparents started. And we have companies like MP Dodge in Omaha, and we have companies like Beard & Warner in Chicago that, this is the third generation that's running it today. So they're not necessarily building a brand. They already have a well-known brand, and, they're top 5 in the market. So
you have all these independents, and they are independent because they want to be independent, and yet Leading RE is bringing them all together. Why is Leading RE there?
So we give them all of the back end power that they need, that they could get if they went to a franchise, except for the brand. So for companies that don't need a brand, well-known companies with a lot of market share. They don't need to pay for a brand, but what we can help them with is education. What we can help them with is networking. We do, broker to broker is our business, and that's like the primary structure of our business. So we do 30,000 broker to broker referrals every year. So if you live in Toronto and you wanted to move to Chicago and you wanted to find a broker in Chicago, your Toronto agent can help you connect to another really good local independent broker in Chicago. And that's where we make the bulk of our money, frankly, is through those connections. And so we're a network, and we give them the power that they would have if they were part of a franchise, because if you were part of a Remax, you would know another Remax in Chicago.
Yeah.
Now this gives them the connection to the other independent, and the other independent is much more likely to have the same values that the company that they worked with in Toronto did.
Now, why did they feel the need to have a luxury division? Why not just have all independents together?
Yeah, good question. So a lot of our companies were, if you've been around for a while, there used to be Sotheby's before it became a franchise. In 2000, I think it was 3, the auction house sold the name, the use of the Sotheby's name to Sendem, which is now Realogy. Before that, the auction house had a real estate marketing division. And so a lot of the independents that were part of our network were part of the Sotheby's marketing program to help them market their high-end properties. And so when they sold it off, the name, they basically rented it. When they sold the name off, a lot of our companies said, we want to still have a luxury marketing program, but we don't need a big name because we have a name. We have a great local name. We need all the services that we had as part of the Sotheby's program. So they were already part of our network. They just came together and said, this way we can own it, and we can develop a program that's going to give us the marketing tools, the reach, the advertising, the website, all of the things that we had, but now it's all under the Leading RE umbrella. So it was out of the gate, we just skyrocketed in growth because there were members that shifted from Sotheby's, they didn't want to become a franchise, to just our program.
How big are these two organizations, both Leading RE and LPI?
So LPI is almost 600 brokerages in 70 countries, and Luxury Portfolio is about half of the companies that are part of the network, but it represents about 80% of the agents within the network, because the larger companies in the network are part of us. And I should mention too, because I referenced it, but I should clarify, Leading RE is owned by brokers. So 30 of the largest real estate brokers in the United States got together. Originally, we've consolidated relocation companies over the years, but almost 50 years ago, I think it was now, they got together and they decided to start this relocation network. So that's a big part of how we're different too. Yeah. We're not another company that's in the real estate business. It's brokers that own us.
So so now talk about the staff inside the organization. Like, how many people are the staff, the people behind Leading RE and LPI?
So we're based in Chicago. We have an office in London and an office in Singapore. We have about 120 employees. We have a third-party relocation company as well called Relo Direct, which does group moves and things like that. So that's a significant number of our employees. But I think we have about 85 in Chicago, and I happen to be one of the remote employees. So we have a lot of people that are out in the field too. We have an employee in Kuala Lumpur. We have a guy in London. We have a woman in Turkey. So we're really diverse.
And has that changed a lot in the last while? Because I also know that you did a rebrand recently. Yeah. So are you guys doing a lot of changes right now to move into the future? Or is
I'm sure. I mean, so again, I've been with the company for 14 years. It's changed a lot in that period of time. In the last 10 years in particular is where we've seen the global growth really take off. As we've grown both in Europe and Asia, and it's been fun and exciting to see. The rebrand that we just did that you referenced that was in February of 2018, and that was, I could talk about that all day long, but it was sort of a pet project of mine. Yeah. But it was truly, we had launched the brand in 2005, and the intent when we launched the brand was really to have something very descriptive and something that sort of sat underneath the brokers' names and didn't in any way compete with it. It was just supposed to be a program more than a brand. But in that period of time, things have changed a lot. There's a lot more competition in the luxury space, and our brokers said we need a name that's more recognizable. And we couldn't change the name because we have the trademark in too many countries. So we focused on creating a mark that was memorable, unique, contemporary, and honestly timeless. So we don't have to do this again in 10 years.
Interesting, okay.
Yeah.
And how else have you evolved, maybe through the use of technology, to add value to your members? How has that evolved over time?
Significantly. In fact, when we launched the program, we were intended to be really just a website and as a way for the agents to market their listings over $1 million US. And over the years, we've added to the program and added to the program. So we, when social media became a thing, we started doing all the social tools and really have a team of people that are dedicated to that. We started doing a lot of video, a lot of education, training, and we started a lot of digital advertising. And we've always done a lot of print, but we've shifted like everybody over the years and are doing a lot of digital and online advertising now too. And everything we do, though, we have to do it where it's available in 70 countries, and where it's something that an agent in Sydney is going to want just as much an agent in Boston. So it's a different.
So do you guys have a suite of services that like your members can then buy and use, kind of thing?
We do. So Leading RE is the network, and then the brokers that are part of Luxury Portfolio enroll in the program, and they pay an annual fee to be part of that.
What is that fee?
And well, it depends.
Okay.
It's a good question. And you'll find that my answer is always, it depends.
Okay.
Because we're not one size fits all.
Okay.
We can have a wonderful boutique company in a small town. It's number one in market share in that small town, and they have 12 agents. Or we can have a company like Long & Foster that's on the mid-Atlantic region of the United States that has 11,000 agents. So it's not one program and one size fits all. So we price the program based on the market that they're in, and then the amount of luxury market share they have. So it depends. And then the menu of services are completely related to what they want to take advantage of. So it's a little, I hate the phrase, but it's a little like a buffet, because they can pick what's going to work for them. I mean, you understand being local, right? So that's the way we localize it, is we try to give them things that they can use that work in their market. There are plenty of people that, like especially in Europe, for example, a lot of brokerages, the agents are employees, and they don't necessarily represent listings. There's not exclusive listings. They represent buyers, and then listings belong to multiple brokers in a market. And so for them, they don't care about listing tools. They want to focus more on getting buyers and how they can work with buyers. And
so understanding these international markets, do you think that they're going to become more like US and Canada, or do you think that some of the stuff that's happening abroad might start coming to the US and Canada?
I think what we've seen in the last 10 years is they're behaving a lot more like with the Western world.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that, sort of in Europe and the countries that are the obvious countries, but we're seeing that more, sort of spreading throughout the world. I think as the world gets smaller and people are, taste and preferences become more similar, businesses are starting to operate more similarly than they are differently. But, you go to a place like China and things are very different. So it's not, I don't think we're ever going to see a homogenous way of selling real estate.
Is there anything that's happening in other countries that you think we should be adopting?
Definitely, yeah.
Like what?
My pet project right now is auctions. I'm fascinated by what's happening in Australia and New Zealand and the way they sell real estate. In those countries, almost 50% of real estate is sold at auction there, and it's just the way they do business. And we're seeing it happening more and more in the U.S., and we're seeing it in luxury properties being auctioned, not distressed properties that are
a transparent auction. Yes.
Online. We partner with a company called Concierge Auctions, and they have an app, and properties are purchased through the app. And when you say transparent, I mean, you have in most cases, there's not a set threshold, so it's a complicated business, but it's beginning to happen more and more. And I think there's a lot of transparency to that, and there's a lot of sort of like what we're seeing with the iBuyer phenomenon right now. It creates certainty, and I think there's a place for it.
So that's one of the projects you're working on. When you think about the future of LPI and Leading RE, what else do you think is going to be on the horizon for you guys?
Well, I can't say everything, but I think I think what I know for sure is that we're going to continue to iterate and innovate. And we have so many boards, and we have a lot of opportunity for input and feedback from our members. And so the things that we do, and in fact, just this morning I was editing a survey that we're doing for our members about our digital advertising opportunities, because we're doing 2020 planning. And we do it based on what people tell us they need. And if we have a relationship with somebody and they say it's not valuable to us, we stop doing it. It's very simple, actually.
Yeah.
So I know that I can't tell you exactly what the world's going to look like, but I can tell you it's going to certainly change.
What is there something that you see happening in the marketplace that you don't see happening in the future?
Something in terms of
how the luxury market works, how the real estate market works. That when you look into the future, you go, because of the changes that we're making and other companies are making, that will cease to exist.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there's a lot of controversy over private listings right now and listings that aren't added to the MLS. And this is more a domestic thing. But, we see some markets where really high-end properties, 30 to 40% of the inventory is traded off MLS and of the high-end inventory. And I think that it's going to grow before it gets smaller, because I think the affluent consumer is very concerned about privacy right now. And so what happens is that those listings don't get the optimal exposure per se, that maybe a lesser expensive listing that gets added to the MLS would get, but that's by design because they want it to be private. So I don't think that has settled yet. I think we're going to see more of that, and then there may be some backlash to it, but I think it's going to change.
Now, I don't own and I'm not able to buy these $15-30 million plus luxury properties like you see in some parts of the world.
We just had one sell for $125 million.
So like these private, discreet people, do you think that's a generational thing? Because I'd be like, hey man, I want the best price for my luxury property, so get this as much exposure as possible. I don't care if people see this, because that's going to help me get more offers.
I don't think it's generational. In fact, I think I think that the more money you have, the bigger target you can be. And so I think there's a very deep concern about privacy. It's not security. I think it's related to our world today and data breaches. And if you have a lot of money, do you really want your home to be photographed and placed online everywhere that anybody can see it? So I think it really is more about that, and it's not necessarily a generational thing.
And you don't think that's going to change?
It might, but I don't see, we're seeing, it's not just older people who are concerned about privacy. I think, and you think about what's happening with technology and the security in luxury homes today. Those are some of the youngest people, homeowners that are driving that.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Now, you see a lot of what's happening with independent brokerages. Is that trend going up, going down, staying the same? Like, what do you see in the marketplace for independent brokerages?
Yeah, it's been a tumultuous year. There's no question. We've seen a lot of consolidation and a lot of change happening. But I think, interestingly, we're hearing and seeing more and more desire from very successful big teams to start their own brokerage. And that's at a more rapid pace than I've seen in past years. So I think all the reasons that someone chooses to be independent in terms of being in control of their own destiny, I think it's going to grow. I don't think there's any threat to it going away.
Because why was consolidation happening?
Well, I think there's a lot of older brokerages older owners of brokerages that don't have a clear path for leaving the company to their children or their grandchildren, and selling the company or partnering with somebody is an easy out. And there's a lot of shiny objects and things that are happening right now. So I think it's a sort of natural. If you study business cycles and the path of real estate and where we are in the business cycle, I think it makes sense that we've seen a lot of consolidation. But I don't think independents are going away. Now,
you also are talking to your members in these independent brokerages, and they are looking out in the marketplace and seeing big venture funded brokerages, big venture funded real estate tech companies. And is that a problem?
I think it's a new challenge. I don't think, problem, right? It's I was meeting with a very successful young broker who just started his own company. in a market 2 weeks ago, and he was telling me that, it's interesting, but he feels like it's a lot of noise, and ultimately, he's sort of, I'm going to stay out of it and watch it all shake out and continue keeping my head down and building my business. So, I think you'd be foolish to not say this is a threat so that I can understand, what it means to my business. But I don't think it's something that should keep people awake at night.
Let's talk about the luxury market, because there are some factors that affect the luxury market a lot,
Sure.
like the economy, then the new types of marketing that can be out there. Before it was just print, and now everyone's doing drones and 3D and VR and sending goggles everywhere. The consumer is changing, the competitors are changing, and technologies are changing. So I want to start with the economy.
Yeah.
Is there more construction happening for luxury year over year? Is it going down? Like, what's happening with the economy right now for luxury?
Well, it's hard. You can't, because we're a global organization, it's hard to say. Like, I've been describing it as sort of a tale of two markets, because there's really, really good markets, and then there's really markets that are struggling. And the way I like to think of it is I study the consumer, and we know that wealth, significant wealth, in the last 7 years has really only gone up. 2018, we saw a small blip. And it's related to confidence. And so the people, how confident people are in the economy, and the strength of the luxury market are incredibly tied together. So I think there is a lot of new construction happening, but it depends on the market. I happen to live in Austin, Texas, and the market is booming, and there's so much construction being done in the luxury end of the market. We've had a lot of problems with, people aren't building affordable housing, and so that's the kind of thing we're seeing.
And does it totally ebb and flow with the economy then? Like,
Completely.
are you seeing like a direct relation, like the economy goes up, more luxury, economy goes down, less luxury?
Well, there's lags, right? But there's not just the economy. It's also very deeply impacted by local changes that local government can make. And I'll give you an example. So I mentioned Australia and New Zealand related to the auctions, right? So New Zealand a few years ago was seeing a lot of Asian buyers coming into the market, and they were buying all of the affordable housing. And so the Kiwis said, well, that's not fair to our local citizens. And so they passed a rule that said, for a while, that people who weren't citizens of New Zealand, they couldn't purchase, they couldn't purchase new construction. They had to, or maybe it was the other way around, they couldn't purchase existing construction. Bottom line, they then changed it to say, in fact, now today, the only people that can purchase real estate in New Zealand are either Singaporeans or Australians or Kiwis.
Really?
Well, can you imagine what that did to the real estate market?
Yeah.
So it's not just the economy, the local politics and the choices that governments make can directly impact that. Also, the environment. We see a lot of things, like climate change happening, and that impacts the way people feel about a specific market and make changes as a result. So wealth doesn't go away; it just moves, and that's what we continue to watch.
And you talked about how some of the needs that these consumers have are similar year over year, decade after decade, in terms of the discrete, being a discrete and wanting to be more private and stuff like that. Are there any things that you're noticing with the consumer that is changing in the luxury market?
Sure. The privacy thing is a good example of that. One thing is a focus on sustainability. I think 5 years ago, that was not a factor where if something had sustainable features, you could charge more money for it. And now we're seeing, I think affluent consumers are caring a lot more about having a sustainable aspect to their home. And so that's something that has really changed quite rapidly, in fact.
And is there anything that these brokers and agents are having to do differently to properly cater to these
Well, for
agents?
sure. We could talk about that all day long, too.
Yeah. What are some of the big things from a marketing, technology, service standpoint?
You have to follow trends, right? And so it's incredibly important that you're doing all of the, like I always tell people, to balance their marketing buy so that it's not just print, but print is still really important in luxury. But it's print and it's digital, and then it's a component of new things too. So whether they're sponsoring podcasts or blogging or doing things like your creative local websites, to always make sure that they keep a portion of their budget or mad money almost, to invest in new things. But so whether it's drones or but if you go 100% into any one of those things, then you're gonna pigeonhole yourself, and you're gonna miss some of the consumers too. So the other thing I'll mention about that too, we did a white paper recently about the media habits of the high net worth and how they consume media, and interestingly, we see it different by generation, the way people, what they watch, what they listen to, what they read, and how they consume media. And so I think making sure that you're, as a marketer, because all agents are really marketers, they're so on top of those things, is important.
Are there any up and coming and brokerages that are entering the luxury space, are making a splash and growing really quickly that you've seen join your network?
We have. I'm always reticent to name specifics because we have multiple brokers in a market, so they compete against each other. But there's some wonderful young, creative, strong, independent brands that are doing some really cool things.
What are some of the things you notice that make them great?
Branding, first of all, a dedication to creating a beautiful brand, and I'd say clean aesthetic. The ones that are really being religious about creating a very clean contemporary aesthetic, because that's where the tastes of consumers have gone today. It's not just true in the US, it's not just true geographically in the US, it's true everywhere. And so those that are really dedicated to and living a brand, and that goes all the way down to their culture, they're winning for sure.
Cool. If people want to get in touch with you and maybe join your network, how can they do that?
Well, they can certainly feel free to email me. So it's just santon@luxuryportfolio.com. They can visit luxuryportfolio.com. That white paper that I mentioned is there, and you can register and download that. So that's open to anybody. And we have a fun blog that's kind of fun to follow too, because it talks about some of the trends I mentioned, and it's a good way to stay on top of it, because education, I think, is the key to this.
All right. Well, hey, thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, it was fun. My pleasure.
It's great to get you to know your organization.
Thanks for having me.
And as always, for everyone watching, there are so many things that can help you be successful in real estate, whether they be networks that you can join if you're an agent, a brokerage, or a team, or organizations that can help you move forward in your career and maybe go independent, help you with your marketing, help you with your communications, and help you be great in real estate. All right, so that's it for today's show, and we'll see you next time.